Alright everyone, so what we have here are a new set of coilovers. So I already got the first coilover together and actually installed on the car. I'm going to show you how I did it. So these are Viking coilovers. These are their Warrior edition. They have two for the Corvette, Warrior and Crusader. Warrior is more for like a touring street car, and Crusader is for like a track oriented car. So for a car that's like street, or for a street strip, they recommend a spring rate of 450 pounds for the Corvette in the rear on the Warriors, and if you get the Crusaders, they recommend 700 spring rate. So since I do a little bit of both, I opted for an upgraded spring rate of 550. So I mean, you might put in the comments, oh, you shouldn't have did that, you should have went with this number, yada yada yada. Well, this is what I went with. So we're gonna see what it looks like or how it performs, and we can always change out springs, because actually installing these coils are actually pretty easy. So the first thing I'm gonna go ahead and do is I looked at someone else's video on how to do this, and go ahead and set the coil up. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna just pull this out. I don't have a camera, I mean, I can't do it with one hand. Maybe if I put my foot on it. But you can see it slowly moving, but you basically want to expand the coil. After you expand the coil, it comes with instructions anyway. You're going to put down the locking ring, which is right here. Then you're going to put the other one on top of it, with these bearings sitting on top of it, just the way you see it. But I'll show you how it goes as we move along. Okay, so we got the coil expanded. Next step is their instructions call for you to actually lube the inside of these rings with anti-seize. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna lube the inside of it. Then I'm gonna go ahead and screw it down till it's about you know, 3 or 4, let's say 4 or 5 threads from the very bottom, so about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. Okay, as you can see, got it all the way down here. Most of the anti-seize came off. So the one video I watched, he didn't put any anti-seize on these until he got to the part where he knew he was going to work with adjusting. So it kind of just worn off, so I guess I'm going to waste putting it on right now. However, I guess it really couldn't hurt. So I'm going to put some more on this last one, and then I'm going to go ahead and screw this one to being just about 1 inch gap in between those two, but between this bottom one. Okay, so the next thing is I'm going to lube the top of this with anti-seize and put the bearing on there, then put the, here I'll show you right quick. So I lube basically the bottom of this or the top of that other one, put the bearing, put this spacer down, and then put the bearing on top of it, and then put the other spacer or retainer on top of that one, but lube the top of this one because the spring is going to be sitting on top of this with anti-seize. So I'll kind of show you. Okay, so got that all lubed up. So the instructions say to do this, but the guy's video, he didn't do all of that. He only lubed the threads, which I'm about to lube here in a second, before you put the spring on there. So I'm about to lube these threads up, even though they're kind of lubed. Lube them up a little bit more with anti-seize, then put the spring on top. Okay, so we slid the spring on there. The next is to put the kind of like a retaining plate at the top, and then compress the spring up to this basically being nice and snug and firm, to where the coil won't be able to bounce up and down. So I'll show you what the finished product looks like. Okay, as you can see, the coil is kind of put together there. The last is, I can show you right here, I got this tightened up, but it's not tight because I still got to adjust it when I have to adjust the height and all that stuff when the car actually gets on the ground with actual weight on it. So the last part is to actually install these eyelets, so that I can actually retain it to the frame of the car and the underbody. So I'll show you how to do that real quick. So what we have here is a little kit that comes with it, and it's kind of self-explanatory. and it uses snap rings to keep it retained. Really doesn't need any instructions on how to do it, because it comes with only 4. These two hold, the two big ones right here, like this size, hold the big this part into the top eyelet of the coil, and then these two little ones hold the bar in, so the bar won't move. But I'll show you when it's all put together. Okay, so yeah, we got the I know it's hard to see, but we got the snap ring in there, that black part. Relatively easy. I have to use a snap ring tool like this. I didn't have one, so I actually had to buy one on Amazon. It cost about $7. So we'll go ahead and put the bar in there, and that'll be kind of and use the snap ring, and that'd be kind of it with the coil assembly. Then we have to go put it on the car, which is just as easy. And as you can see, here is the bar and everything installed. So when you install these on the car, one bar actually faces the inside of the wheel, and the other part faces in towards the body of the car. So I'll show you kind of what I mean and how you can tell if you got them backwards. How I got them backwards. But let's go down to the car and show you how to take apart your existing setup and then put the coilover on a new setup. Okay, so what we have here is the passenger side, and the coils are actually marked right rear and left rear, and you can see this one's fully installed. It just needs to be adjusted, and you can see what I mean right here by the bar. Got the long side facing inward towards the wheel, and you'll know you have it on backwards because you'll see some the eyelet kind of hitting the outside perimeter of that hole. So I'm gonna go do the other side and walk you through it, but kind of it in a nutshell, what you're gonna take apart is you're gonna take apart the what I would do first is undo, take some what is it called, pressure off the control arm. So get your jack underneath here and jack it up a little bit, and then unbolt the top or the bottom, whichever one you do first, of the coil or the shock that you already have there. Then undo the control arms, and then undo. You don't have to undo this completely. Just loosen it up. Undo the tie rod. So I mean, yeah, it is a tie rod. So gonna go ahead on the other side and go ahead and do this. One other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and take the rotor off and the caliper, because I'm putting new rotors on here, some stop techs that are slotted, since my other ones, as I showed in a different video, or maybe I haven't yet, got stress cracks from the heat on the track. So let's go on the other side, get it jacked up, and get to work. Okay, so we have the caliper off. I need to really torque those down a lot better, because they came out, they were on there pretty loose. As you can see right here, hopefully I got enough light. This is the inside of the coil, and you can see that metal rod right there. It's actually broken. I really can't get no light on there. But when I pull it out, you'll be able to definitely see that. Let's see. That metal rod right there, yeah, you can see it now. It's actually broken. And that's why the coil basically, it's actually the piston is completely failed. So the next thing we're gonna do is unbolt the bottom or the top, depending on what order I want to do it, then the control arm, and then dang it, I forgot what it's called. But anyway, we'll get to that at last, and it'll be coming out pretty easy after that. So let's go and do that. Okay, so we got the top and the bottom undone. It was relatively easy because since it was broken, it had some flex to it, so I can get to that nut in the back, which is like 1/2 inch, and then this one down here is like a really big size. What is it? 15, 16 for the one down here. So the next thing you got to do is take the control arm bolts out, which are pretty easy, and then loosen this one up. Make sure you put an Allen an Allen in the center so that you can make sure it turns correctly, and let the control arm fall down just a little bit and maneuver the coil out, and it's pretty dang simple. So let's go ahead and get those bolts out of the control arm and keep going. Okay, so as you can see with this coil, this one right here, it actually fell apart as I was taking it out. Like all these top pieces, it just crumbled as soon as it got a little bit of room off the bottom. So the reason why I'm replacing these, the driver's side is obvious. It was crumbling and fell apart, and it basically just broke. Don't know why, just maybe it wasn't up for what I'm my driving and the tracks. But this is FAT engineering, PFADT engineering. I think it's probably their first generation, because it doesn't look like they're new ones. So these are good. These are supposed to be good quality coilovers. What I'm going to do with them is I'm going to put them in a box, show them to somebody or send them off to somebody, see if they can be rebuilt. I have a good feeling this one cannot be rebuilt, just looking at everything that's happened to it. And the reason why I replaced this one is not because I want to replace it in pairs, but because this one was leaking. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. So I'm gonna go ahead and box these up. I'm gonna go ahead and install the other one in reverse. Let me go ahead and get the other one out and show you what it looks like. So I know the lighting's not all that great, but as you put these side by side, you can see that the Vikings is just a little bit more spaced out in the spring, and it seems a little bit more beefier than these Gen 1s, or I don't know what model number FATs these are. So yeah, there's a quick comparison. So anyway, let's go ahead and go get this other one started after I box these up. Okay, so as you can see, we got the coil fixated up there. It's nice and tight. I still gotta tighten the bottom. We have one control arm in, and we're gonna put the other bolt in. What I got here on the threads is anti-seize, and so I'm putting that pretty much on all the threads I'm using. So let's just keep going, putting it back together. Okay, so now we got the coil on here. The last thing we need to do is let the car down, put some weight on it, and then also tighten these up and adjust them to the right height we want. I left these little knobs facing inward. I don't know if they're supposed to go inward or outward, but that's essentially what I did. So yep, so on to the, I'm just gonna check some of these and make sure they're tight, especially up here, and then next part will be putting on the ground and adjusting it. Okay, so we got the car in the air. We're finished up the engine project, but it's time to adjust the coilovers and close out this segment of the video. So what I have is these two wrenches that were given to me by Viking, and I'm gonna go under here and I'm gonna just tighten these up, or I'm probably gonna actually compress it a little bit, because I got like 4 inches of four fingers wheel gap, and I want it to get a little bit tighter. So I'm gonna try to bring them in just a little bit, and go from there. Okay, so I lowered it and I went ahead and measured it using this caliper. It came out to like 98, 99 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is go on the passenger side and go ahead and do the same thing. Okay, so I actually had to go the opposite way. And what I put him at is like 118, 119 millimeters from his base, measuring from the very bottom of the coilover. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this jack stand out, go ahead and lower it and give it a look on what it looks like. If it still looks too high or whatever, then I'm just gonna leave it. But if it rides like crap, then I'm gonna have to get back underneath there and adjust it. I mean, it's gonna look high because the suspension hasn't settled and I haven't moved the car around. So we'll drive it around, especially with the test drive when I put the hood on there, and see if everything rides right, and we'll go from there. So just want to close out the coilover video. As you can see, the car is completely back together, and I've been riding on these new Viking coilovers for like maybe the last 3 weeks to a month, maybe somewhere around there, probably a little longer than a month. to be honest with you. And my thoughts on them, I feel like they're a little bit more bouncy than the fats that I had on there. It seems that way. They're a little softer, but it might just be in my mind, or maybe because it's just a different shock altogether. But other than that, they seem to be performing just fine. I mean, my ride height is a little higher than what I'm comfortable, than what I wanted. As you can see on this other Vet here, you can fit 2 fingers. That's just about between the wheel gap. And over here, you can fit four fingers in the wheel gap. So yeah, that's just one of the things. I still have stock. I still have fats up front on the front coilovers, and this is straight up 2 fingers. So it's kind of got like a lean like that, which isn't that bad. It looks pretty good that way. I'm not complaining, but we'll see when I have to change out the front ones when those go bad to put Vikings on there and see what happens with it. Other than that, I haven't taken it to the track. I have not done any back road drives to see how it really stands out and really performs. But we'll be seeing here pretty soon. Seeing this Sunday, I'm going to do my first drive of the car since I have it back together. And then we have another track session coming up next month. If you haven't been to the channel before, please like, please subscribe. Stay tuned for all the other videos of me doing the engine rebuild and repairing my brake system. And thank you for watching.